Hey Queen, so I am back with Season 3, Episode 3 recap of Who is Mr. Robot. Recapped episodes 1 and 2 already, recapped the previous 2 seasons. If this is your first time watching my video, cancer chemotherapy don't normally look like this. I mean, if you watch my other videos, you'll probably figure that out. But anyways, I recapped like the whole season again. If you have not seen anything of mine, I'll link those videos somewhere and we'll get to it. So now we are in episode 3 of season 3 of Who is Mr. Robot. this is a mood swing for some of y'all. Now, this whole season started off with some kind of weird talk about parallel universes and Angela saying how they wish they can go back. Well, she knows a way to go back in time where they can make anything as if it never happened and stuff like that. So the episode opens with Tyrell. We see Elliot, the baby, Sharon, and everything like this. And it's like, oh, like, we met for a reason. So a lot of the things that Tyrell has done, everything leading up to his meeting with Elliot, and I guess more of Tyrell's inner conflicts and struggle, so to speak, with this whole series that has gone on so far. So we also see Dom in the shooting when she was in China from season 2. We hear talk about stage 2, a shot, and then we see the gun and the popcorn scene, like when Elliot's like gonna go get the gun out of the popcorn machine, and then when he says what happened, because again, the gunshot. So we are referencing that. So now we see we're at a computer and everything's complete and everything like this, and Tyrell and Elliot are there. And this is, I believe, the ending of season 1-ish, when they were there at the popcorn machine getting the gun. I believe that was season 1. So they're talking about a lot of things happening. Again, the popcorn and Mr. Robot with that gun. Elliot is talking, but again, when Elliot talks, it wasn't as it is now in season 3, that we kind of saw more of that struggle that was built on in season 2, where Mr. Robot is usually the one talking through Elliot. Like, we know it's Mr. Robot, but I think with season 1, we didn't know that it really was Mr. Robot. And it was kind of like we did see 2 different people, but now we're actually seeing that it is that kind of split personality, so to speak, between Elliot and Mr. Robot, and like they're fighting for control of like this one body, which I'm always like, is this like possession or something? Just saying. And so I'm like, oh, like what happened? And they have all this proof and everything like this, because Tyrell's like, it's evidence of the proof that they met here, they met there, so to speak, and that it wasn't by chance, like kind of White Rose is like nothing is ever by chance, and that everything has a certain specific meaning. And he's just laughing and saying, you know what? When he told me that I couldn't see above but only in front, he's kind of like, okay, Tyrell's interpretation of that is that both he and Elliot are gods, and that they join like God's inner circle or something like that, and they're supposed to lead this revolution. Of course, what is this revolution? This revolution being the whole, what is now known as the 5-9 hack, and everything that he did with F Society Elliot, with Steel Mountain, and in season 2 hacking the FBI. And I mean, he kind of hacked the FBI again, but you get what I mean. So everything that they did wasn't by chance. Of course, I've been, asking you guys the question, is this all planned, or is this all orchestrated, let's say, by a puppet master? White Rose would probably be the biggest one we would all point fingers at, so to speak. But of course, we are only 3 episodes into the series, and, well, season, I should say. And then he's like, you know what? This really isn't going to kill Evil Corp, because Elliot's big plan the whole time was, we're going to bring Evil Corp down. I'm going to destroy Evil Corp. I'm going to make it a better world for people once Evil Corp is gone. There won't be any death. There won't be any this. And that's something that he really wasn't, I guess, aware of how deep Evil Corp went, how deep Evil Corp is, and everything that's going to lead up to how they're going to, I guess, free the world from the invisible hand that he kept talking about in season 1. And then we kind of move on to them having, their little moment and everything like this. And, well, they're talking, and Tyrell is kind of on this weird, I don't know if you would say verge of a mental breakdown or verge of this little don't really know how to explain it, but he's kind of having like a moment, so to speak. And he wants Elliot to pull the trigger because he gets down on his knees and pulls the gun towards his forehead that Elliot was holding at him. And he's like, you know what, just pull the trigger. Like, I'll accept like my fate, like whatever happens, happens. And he obviously doesn't. And they're talking about, stage 2. And Tyrell also says that after tonight, he really doesn't know who's going to support him. So, like, he doesn't know who his real friends are going to be after what they just did with the whole 5-9 hack and everything like that. And it's just like, you know what? Thank you, Elliot. Like, I love you. But he's talking to Mr. Robot. So Mr. Robot's like, something's better left unsaid. And he's like, just sit down, Tyrell. And he's like, you know what? You're the perfect kind of crazy to protect me. And he means from me. And he kind of hands him the gun. So that is why at the end of season 2, Tyrell has the gun and Mr. Robot is kind of there. Because Mr. Robot and Tyrell already had that conversation to protect Elliot from himself. And at the same time bring about, I guess, like a in case of emergency break glass kind of a situation where Tyrell will get the gun and shoot Elliot and stop him, not only physically but also probably mentally for a minute, where it would allow Mr. Robot to come back, Mr. Robot to take control, which we kind of did see at the end of episode 1, and we are seeing more so now. And Mr. Robot seems to be coming into Elliot's, I wouldn't say mind, but being, so to speak. And really, Elliot's not picking up on it, or Elliot's not really one to notice it right away, or Elliot's not the one that's like, whoa, like, I didn't even know Mr. Robot took control. But he's like, he knows, but he's not 100% aware or comprehending how and why all of this is going on. Now, we go to Bobby Cannavale. He arrives at the F Society place, and they saw Tyrell's car, like they ran the plates, and they're like, okay, this is Tyrell, like, this is him, that's why he's called there, kind of like how he's like, goes and finds Angela Moss, and then probably eventually he's gonna find Darlene and stuff like that within this season. And when they find it, they go in and everything, and they're talking about records and data, and then the Dark Army is there, and they start asking questions like, does anyone know you're here? Did anyone see you here? Like, were you followed, so to speak? And then he's like, you know what? We're gonna get to you in a moment, because Elliot tries to butt in, Mr. Robot tries to butt in, and stuff like that. And they ask for Tyrell's keys and his phone, and they say, do you know how to drive? To Mr. Robot, you're going to go to 17 and 6, and we're going to leave that car there. Now, this is probably when Elliot woke up in Tyrell's car, and he didn't really know what had happened. And he was just like, where am I? And Robot is just like, okay, you know what? Like, no. And then the guns are pointed at him, and they're just like, they're not kidding with him. Just because Mr. Robot says no, Mr. Robot has his plan and he wants to carry it out. Right then and there, they want Tyrell, and it's like, they're stalling the plan probably for a little reason, or they're like, okay, now's not the right time, and stuff like that. And he's just like, look, Tyrell's going to be the most wanted person, so they have to get him out of here. They can't really just have him doing all these things and acting in secrecy, and then being there, and then being the person that's most wanted, and probably getting busted and caught, and probably ruining the whole mastermind plan, because maybe, let's say, the mastermind behind all of this, his reach is only so far, and he only has so much power, so it's, I wouldn't say playing with fire, but kind of like, you're asking a little too much if Tyrell gets caught, and it's not within their power, it's not within the people they know to free Tyrell, because then everything's going to be destroyed that they thought about and everything that they've worked on so far. And then he's like, you know what? When you see me, he's like, that's when you know you fucked up. And he also mentions Gideon Goddard. And if you don't remember, Gideon was obviously like Elliot's boss from season 1. I mean, he died, so if you haven't watched that, spoiler. And they talk about how Gideon had contacted the FBI after that honeypot from season 1 and everything like that. So he's like, I'll help and everything like this, but to stay out of jail for Tyrell, it's probably going to be a little bit harder, so to speak, because Tyrell seems more unpredictable than Elliot. Like, Elliot seems he can be unpredictable, but in a way, I think they kind of know what he's going to do, where he'll go, and who he's going to run to, because it seems like he almost has a routine, so to speak, already made. Like, if you pay close attention, like, it seems all over the place, but it kind of has a pattern to it. Tyrell seems like he has a pattern, but he can snap, and that's the part that they don't know. Which is why, like, maybe he'd be a flight risk instead of Darlene, so to speak. And then Elliot basically tells Tyrell, like, you should go. And then we see this car driving to the forest to a safe house of sorts. And they come in, it's Bobby Cannavale's character in the Dark Army with Tyrell, and they have groceries. And when he asks how long he's going to stay there, it's, they're not really sure. And they want him to contact Joanna. They tell Tyrell, like, you need to contact your wife and everything like this. And Tyrell's kind of saying, distance is best. Like, checking in really isn't, I think, in the best interest and safety for both of them, because obviously if they contact Joanna, they're probably gonna like try to find him, or like maybe Joanna will get hurt, maybe the baby will get hurt, maybe they'll find him and he'll get arrested, which obviously he probably doesn't want to get arrested, but he is just, he's probably more scared than Elliot was when Elliot got arrested, so to speak, and was in jail for basically all of season 2 and everything like that. And he wants his gun back, and he's asking again about Elliot, and like he needs to be safe. And they basically tell him like they own all 37 acres and it's basically monitored. So if you want security, like then just don't leave. If you want that protection, like stay in the house. Like you're all good. Like all this land is theirs. No one's supposed to be up there. No one's gonna go up there. It's like a mini fortress of sorts. Not really, but for holding Tyrell, probably. Now, this is when we get to the knock on Elliot's door, and we saw that he was arrested, and they're like telling him what his charges are and everything like this. And then we see White Rose and White Rose's friends, and they're talking about how they tried to help stop Elliot's arrest, but it was just too fast and I guess too sudden and too unexpected and unpredictable, maybe. But it just happened, and they really weren't prepared to like try and like stop it and be like, oh no, like do this, like hack the police, so to speak, and be like, oh, maybe Elliot isn't supposed to be arrested. And White Rose is asking for his friend to learn English, like he's like saying it's about time that he has to do it. And when they asked what the crime was, White Rose is like, entertain me. He's like, what did Elliot do? He stole the victim's dog, which, he stole Flipper, basically. And then they have Trump on the TV, which I was like, girl. And we see the guy from the Frank show, the something Frank that Joanna was on, and stuff like that. And he basically wants him to do media stuff, to narrate Tyrell into a positive light and F society into Iran. And he also wants him to back up Trump and pull the right strings, and any puppet will dance, because that guy's like, you want him, like you want that crazy like bimbo to be president, like me to endorse him, I guess. And he's kind of like, just do what I tell you, because he flew him out there, and White Rose isn't one to waste time. And this guy is just like, I guess maybe the reference would be Fox News and like Trump, and you have someone pushing Trump, and like they're on Fox News, and like that's all they do. I guess you could compare this guy to like Tommy Lauren, or I'd probably say like Hannity or Bill O'Reilly. I'm not sure. I know Bill O'Reilly like molested people or something, so maybe not that, but you guys should know what I mean. And anyways, we see Tyrell. He gets scared awake by the Dark Army, and he meets someone called Mr. Williams. And when he says that he was 4 days alone, like, where's Elliot? He kind of just responds by saying, you know what, Tyrell, it's very interesting, and like kind of interesting in a way to explain it to you. Things didn't go as planned, I guess. Is what he's trying to say. And he has a bunch of questions for Tyrell, because he asks him, like, you're working on stage 2 before and everything, and you need to get everything done with the recovery by Evil Corp. But Mr. Williams really isn't paying attention to Tyrell, because he's just there to ask Tyrell some basic questions, such as, if you're gonna have loyalty at this level, are you gonna be loyal to me? Did you kill Sharon Knowles? Did you cheat on your wife? Do you hate your father? Are you afraid to be like your father? Did you sleep with anyone else before marriage? And Tyrell is like just lying about this, and he's putting like an X like on the side of every question. And Tyrell's like once he starts like saying the truth and stuff. And the one thing he really couldn't come to terms with for a little bit was, did he kill Sharon Knowles, and about his father. So obviously Tyrell has daddy issues, to put it in the simplest terms, and everything like this. And yes, of course he did kill Sharon Knowles. We really can't say anything, because I mean, we saw him kill Sharon Knowles. Sharon's husband didn't choke her out, like she lied to the police to, and everything like this. So then when he's kind of like broken, he's like, okay. And then this Chinese guy walks in, and then he walks out, because Mr. Williams is like, I got this, boo, I got this. And he says, you know what, I'm always loyal to Elliot, because even though Tyrell said he wasn't going to be loyal to him, he is going to have this loyalty to Elliot. Now, I know there has been like theories and such like this, but everyone has been saying, so to speak, that Elliot and Tyrell are a thing. I know Martin Wallstrom, who plays Tyrell, um, I think responded to a tweet of people asking him, are Elliot and Tyrell a thing? Does he think they're a thing? You know, stuff like this, because I know people are like, oh, like, you know, Tyrell likes Elliot. Maybe Elliot kind of has a thing for Tyrell, but he doesn't, and it's hard to say. But I think this is probably very one-sided, and Elliot likes Tyrell. I mean, Elliot doesn't like Tyrell, but Tyrell has a real big, like, I don't know, crush or something on Elliot. So it's kind of like Tyrell is going to do what Elliot says just because he likes him. Or maybe it isn't that deep, but Tyrell is just like in his own head and in his own mind. But again, you really can't say much, because I mean, even though Tyrell's always like, Elliot, Elliot, where's Elliot? I need to be with Elliot. I need to work with Elliot. Like, I need to see Elliot. Like, Elliot has to be right in front of me so we can finish what we started, and Elliot has to be here. Like, he's just always Elliot, Elliot, Elliot. Like, that's all he wants. So again, that is a theory. So anyways, they tell him that he'll be getting a phone and a laptop, and they're going to be calling it Red Wheelbarrow on behalf of Elliot's request. And then when he asks where is he, this is where we see where Dom had let Darlene listen into the conversation where Tyrell called Elliot while he was in prison. So this is when Tyrell called Elliot, and Elliot was like, who are you? Like, you know, and like wasn't really, I guess, in the right state of mind, or it wasn't clicking with him that Tyrell wasn't dead, because in his mind, I guess he's just, and then he just sees this when Mr. Robot is gone. So when he's talking to Tyrell as Mr. Robot, he probably doesn't remember anything. And obviously the last thing he saw was as Mr. Robot, what he was told to do, where he was told to go, leaving the money on the dash, I believe, and just being in that parking lot, and then just being like, okay, like, the last thing I remember was being in Tyrell's car, which, like they say, unbeknownst to Elliot, was him as Mr. Robot being like, okay, like, I have to do what they're telling me, because that's what I'm being told by the scary guy with the dark army who told Tyrell they should go with him. Which, obviously, Tyrell's going to remember, but for Elliot, when he snaps out of it, and snaps out of Mr. Robot, he's not going to remember anything at all. So, that's how it is. And then we move on to Bobby at the table, and then Tyrell's in the background throwing stuff and everything like this, and, you know, I guess kind of like acting strange or whatever. And then he's like, you know what, let's go outside. And he tells him that he needs to split logs to balance and channel his energy and put himself in a more positive light. And for Tyrell, he's like, you know what, like, I did this as a kid, like, I hated it, so like, why am I gonna do this? But he does it anyways, and we see that he's looking at his baby on the camera, and he puts like a little needle point on New York, kind of like when you drop a pin into your location on, I think, like Google Maps or like an iPhone. I don't have an iPhone, but I have an iPod, so I think that's, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. And we see Darlene and Cisco is like, you know, don't you ever think about like giving everything up, like the hacking and probably what they're doing, like the bigger picture, and like he's telling her, can we just be like a normal couple? Can we just be like a couple that doesn't have any of this around them? A couple that doesn't have to deal with X, Y, and Z. And a couple who's just, like how Elliot says, normal, a human being. Doesn't have a huge, I wouldn't say responsibility, but it's kind of what it is. But again, it's brought upon them. It's not really their mission. It's like they made it a mission, they made it a goal, and they decided to pursue it. Like, no one told them to do this or that. So I guess that's what Cisco means. Like, instead of doing this, like, why don't we just do this? And maybe he knows that Darlene doesn't really want to do it. And again, she's only there because of Elliot. But just, I guess he hints at it in a way, if you want to think about it. And he did mention Angela first. And then she's kind of just like, whatever, you know, like, she's kind of over it. But they're still together and everything like this. And when Cisco gets to a car, he meets up with these people, which we know is Bobby Cannavale's character, and he gives him the stuff that Darlene gave him. And he's just like, you know what, like, Darlene is just like a job, like, don't get attached, and she's protected and you're not. And he's kind of like, if we're working for the same people, like, how am I not protected? And I guess that's what he means when the FBI goes and finds Dom. Like, they probably knew that the FBI was gonna go and find Darlene, maybe Angela, and maybe he already kind of figured that Cisco was too weak, or maybe Cisco wasn't going to be too loyal. I wouldn't know if he would save Darlene by telling her or letting her in on something. I really don't feel he would, but maybe that's what they thought. So that would probably be the reasoning behind why they shot him and killed him while they were at the diner. Darlene and Cisco having dinner that one time that, all those motorcycles just ran up and like shot up the place, and she's like, oh my god, they shot Cisco in front of me. Which is why I kept begging the question, like, if someone says expendable and they seem to play a big-ish enough role, where is that really leaving Angela and Darlene? I mean, I would say Dom and other FBI agents, but I think that's kind of a reach. I don't know if they would do that, because White Rose, again, probably has only so much power and extension and like contacts and people that White Rose knows. So I really wouldn't think they would do that. But again, you never know with the series. I mean, Joanna just got shot basically point blank if you think about it. So it's kind of like, it could happen. It could happen, but so far it hasn't. And then we see Elliot, I believe, and we see Tyrell, and he's talking about how there's more code on this thing that he and Elliot were working on, and how it's Android malware, and he's like, you know what, whatever. And Bobby Cannavale's character, I believe his name is Irving, is saying, you know what, we need to get back to the city with this thing. Tyrell's not gonna leave. And then Tyrell's looking at Joanna gossip, like, oh, like she has a side hoe. Basically, like Joanna has like another guy in her life, and she's, I guess you would say, cheating on Tyrell, even though she doesn't know what Tyrell is, and Tyrell doesn't want to make the effort to, I guess, contact her in any way. So it's odd. And he's doing those pinpoint maps again, and then they bring him some Swedish fish, and he mentions some Bible verse. He's like, oh, thank you, got me the sunglasses. And it's kind of just like, okay, like Tyrell's really probably breaking down. Like, this whole episode, I would say, would be Tyrell's breakdown, reflection, kind of trying to figure himself out, but not truly figuring himself out. I don't know. It's weird to explain it. But it is one of those episodes where you do get to see a little bit more of Tyrell and kind of him as a weak person. Because I know he does mention how Joanna probably wants to see a strong Tyrell. She doesn't want to see a weak Tyrell or something. And he's kind of like very insecure with himself. But anyways, we move on to see Tyrell packing up to leave. He puts on his sunglasses and everything. And he sees some police officer and he's trying to like act cool and nonchalant. And then the policeman starts going after him. There's shots fired and he calls him in. And he basically arrests him and he calls them in to be like, oh yeah, like I found Tyrell. Well, like this is the most wanted man on earth, basically. And he's just like, yeah, I got him here. We're going to transport you, later. And Tyrell's there in his handcuffs and he's detained, basically. And it's going to be locally, and then they'll hand him off to the FBI. And that guy's like, I need a selfie with you. Like, no one would ever believe me that I caught Tyrell Wellek and everything like that. So then when they're pulled over and everything, Tyrell is kind of like breaking his thumb so you can like slip it through the handcuffs. So he basically is holding his thumb and he's like breaking it in like different places so it's not really like stiff, and since it's broken it can just like slide through and he'll be free of his handcuffs, which I mean he did, but I mean it's like, girl, what are you doing? And then the transport arrives and the cop is like, oh hey, like they're here, and then they shoot him, and when they look in it's kind of like Tyrell's freaking out and it's just like, oh, like someone there. And then we find out that guy is like working with Irving. It's like, you could have just given me the address, like it's gonna be so suspicious. Because this cop also dodged a shootout in China, and it's like, why were you alive? And he's like, the FBI hack and everything like this, like we need to do better. Like I guess he's pissed off with Tyrell and like what he had to do to cover up for Tyrell, and what he has to do basically with whatever his role is working with Irving. And then Irving was like, we just took care of shit today. Like, what do you want? He's like, we did our jobs. And he's like, this better not happen again. And he looks at Tyrell. And Irving's just like, I guess, sitting there at the table just watching what Tyrell will do. But Tyrell's kind of just like, he's having, I guess, one of those, I'm just going to look out the window and pretend no one's talking to me. And like, I didn't do anything wrong. And like he's just having, like I say, like a weird thought process going on probably throughout this whole thing. They give him some ice for his thumb. And Irving is like making up a story of how he's married to, Job, and that's nature or choice. And he's like, oh, when my wife left with my kids and everything, like I was so broken and it took me a while to find myself. I was lost, and then I proved myself. And he says like he's gonna go home and like have popcorn and watch Big Brother with his sons. And then he tells Tyrell like, you'll do that too. You'll fix yourself. You'll fix your life. You'll find who you are and the man inside you, I guess. And he's like, yeah. Again, like Joanna needs to see this Tyrell that's gonna say everything's okay and like everything's good and they know what they're doing. Is like, you know what? The mission is gonna be back on track with Elliot, but there's gonna be a few more weeks because Tyrell's just like, I need Elliot. Like, we need to finish this together. We started this together, and he's basically the brains behind the operation if you think about it. And then we go to this car place, and that's when we find out that Irving basically faked the whole story with his fake thermos that says "#1 dad, our world's best dad." And it's like, I just needed something to be relatable and snap into Tyrell, since Tyrell has this weird daddy issue thing and I guess struggles with a lot that we don't really know, but we're finding out. And we also see when he goes home, Irving has this collection of those thermoses, and he's watching Big Brother, and all those thermoses say something different. And he's writing this book. It was something about a beach towel or whatever. And then we move on to him talking to ASAP Rocky, I believe. And he's talking about how he killed a bunch of people, and he's just like, that's not what I meant. Because he's talking about how he killed those neo-Nazis that were going to like bully or beat up Elliot. He's like, no. And he's like, oh, well, oh, Elliot. He's like, oh, yeah, like, he got his stuff and he's gonna get out soon, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I did what I was told. And everything's kind of like, okay. Like, that's what I meant. And we move to Tyrell, and they tell him to pack because Elliot's being released. And then we see the building from season 2, and he's there, and he's like, you know what, he's gonna like this. And this is also the same building from the premiere that Elliot was shot in. So he's just like, wow, like, this is the building for Elliot. Like, I'm doing this for Elliot, so to speak. Um, Again, he says he's gonna love it, and they give him the gun back. And then now he's at like a hotel, probably from the Dark Army, at some Chinese hotel. And then they'll tell him, like when you meet, you have to go down, but you're gonna stay here till we tell you, like, you come down, you do what we tell you to do. And if we're not telling you anything, you just stay in your hotel room. You order room service if you get hungry. Like, you're not supposed to leave this premises, and like no windows. Like, don't go to a window because now you're in the city. And if they see Tara Willick and they're like, we can't help you. And he basically tells them like, I can't help you if you get arrested in here, which is why I say White Rose's connections and help probably go only so far to help Tyrell if Tyrell were to get caught in here. And Tyrell's asking for a suit, and he says it's non-negotiable because he has to look his best for Elliot, which is why I keep saying I feel like maybe Tyrell does have a thing for Elliot, but we'll find out as the series progresses. And then we see that Tyrell is shaving and he's showering and he's getting all dressed up, and they call him down. And we see him at the window, which he's not supposed to do. And then we see Elliot at the taxi, and he gets in, and then Tyrell walks in. And that was the meeting, I believe, when they went to the roller coaster place, or it could be another episode that I'm mixing up with. And then we move into the surgery of Elliot. So this was basically before the premiere when they brought Elliot to Angela, and Angela has to take over, and Angela's saying, like, I'm going to handle it from here. Like, I know basically who is Mr. Robot and how he's in good hands. And, Tyrell's like, we were a team and stuff. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen. And he's very disheveled that Elliot kept telling him that he wasn't real. And also, Angela's the one that breaks it to him, like, you know what, Elliot is a different person. Like, Elliot does have this different personality, so to speak, within him that lives within him that is Mr. Robot. And then he's kind of like, and then we see Elliot wake up, and he's like in the surgery bed, and he's kind of just like looking, and he sees Tyrell, and Tyrell's kind of like he like lights up a little bit because Elliot is awake. But then we find out that it's actually Mr. Robot who's looking at him. So I guess Mr. Robot's like, you did what you're told. And Elliot is kind of like still woozy or something. And that's where it's snapping back. Again, because he's seeing Tyrell and he's seeing Angela. So probably Mr. Robot is noticing Tyrell. And it's like, okay, so what happened, and we're going to get through this, so to speak. And then hearing Angela, but not knowing why Angela is there. Which is probably why in the premiere when he's interacting with Angela on the train, he's like, I don't know you. Why are you here? And what are your intentions, basically? And with Tyrell, he probably just trusts Elliot so much that Elliot doesn't question him because Elliot and Mr. Robot know that Tyrell will do what he's told. But with Angela, it's kind of like, who is she? And then again, with Angela and Tyrell, I feel like they're going to conflict a lot. But obviously, we're going to have to see as we go into the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. So, anywho, I want to say hi to Rami Malek. Stay safe and God bless y'all.